Morning, everybody. It's day 13 of our lockdown here in South Africa, day 13 of our devotional series. This lockdown's obviously caused a huge amount of difficulty, especially in our economy, a huge amount of trauma, huge amount of loss, and who knows what will still come. But at the same time, it's also been a tremendous gift for many people, for many families. If this lockdown had have happened this time last year, it would have just been the four of us, myself, Jackie, and our two boys, that would have been part of the lockdown. But at the beginning of August last year, our little girl Trinity joined our family. She turned 7 the week before the lockdown started, and it has been the most amazing journey to get to know her over the last 8 odd months. But this lockdown time has given us a chance to get to know her in a whole deeper way, and her chance to know us because we're together 24/7. That brings me to today's verse, which is Philippians 3 and verse 10. And Paul says this, he says, I want to know Christ. I want to know Christ. Now, this is not written by a man who's wanting to become a believer in Jesus. He had been a believer for many years. Back in the book of Acts, we read how Jesus met him on his way to Damascus as he was going to persecute Christians, and he had come to know Christ on that day. But now, many years later, after having planted many churches, traveled around preaching the gospel, being imprisoned, he says these words, I want to know Christ. Before that verse, in verse 10, he says, I consider everything a loss for the sake of Christ. He says, everything that I had, I consider garbage compared to the incredible privilege of knowing Jesus. Elsewhere in the New Testament, he says to the believers, I pray that you would grow in your knowledge of Christ. Clearly, knowing Christ is not just something that happens when we put our faith in him, but is something that, because he's an infinite God, and infinitely beautiful, infinitely wonderful, infinitely amazing, would take us an infinite amount of time to get to know him better and more. In fact, from reading these verses and from the entire New Testament, we could say this: the thing that you and I have been created for, our highest purpose, our greatest calling, the deepest desire, the deepest wiring of our hearts, is to have a relationship with Jesus Christ, and not just a relationship that continues on the same level, but an ever deepening relationship, a relationship that comes to know him more and more and more. Every single event, every single moment in our lives is an opportunity to discover something more and something new about him. So the question today is, how is your knowledge of Christ going? Is your relationship with him deepening? Is he becoming ever more precious, ever more wonderful? Is your connection with him becoming ever more meaningful to you? I want to know Christ. God bless.